Ladies and gentlemen, we've done it. We reached rank 7. And I would say 3 out of 4 dentists would agree that these fights are very difficult. The last dentist is a friend with Meat Wad, I forget the name, the last boss of this rank. And turns out he's a joke and he doesn't belong. But we'll talk about that later. Anyway, you'll fight a crazy pair of goblin engineers, as you see here, who love rockets and fuel, and I think they sniff glue. You're going to fight a dark summoner who is a complete asshole and hangs out with assholes just like him, and they just have asshole comparison contests all day. They get these big mirrors that hang on the ceiling. It's quite disturbing. You'll fight Battletron, who is a Tron of a battle. He's a robot guy with some orbs, and he is difficult. And then you'll fight Meat Bag. A ghoul knoll. It's a knoll, that's what it is. And he's super easy, and he's the last boss of this tier, and it's stupid. Okay, anyway, I gotta take a breath. Let's get started. Alright, so first up, you're facing GG Engineering, which is the goblin engineer duo who loves to drop bombs and fire and watch the world burn. And they don't care if you're in it. So, suck it, goblins. I don't like you. Anyway, they share health, and that's good because you have to do quite a bit of damage to them, 12 million. But they use different abilities from each other. So Max here likes to use Goblin Rocket Barrage. He'll basically do a 4-second cast, and then when the cast completes, he'll start to channel for around 9 seconds, during which time he will throw out a rocket every 750 milliseconds. These rockets alternate, so the first one will target your location, wherever you were standing, and then the next one will be in a random location around the room. The next one will target you, the next one random, and so on. But they're so frequent that you pretty much always have a rocket landing at your position, so you'll need to move a lot if he's channeling that ability. Now, these damage you quite heavily, but they won't one-shot you outright if you're full health. Probably would two-shot you, though, so don't stand in them. But you can and should avoid all the rocket hits throughout this fight. So just watch for that graphic on the ground and start sidestepping when it's happening. Now, you can also stun both these goblins to interrupt their abilities. You can't interrupt them directly, but you can stun them and I assume silence them as well. And that will stop their cast for that time. Meanwhile, the female bow here will use Gnomish Death Ray. So you can see she's channeling it there. And this is, again, non-interruptible directly. But every 3 seconds, she'll hit you for around 70,000 or so damage from that ray. And it's quite a bit of damage. It adds up quick. So you need to decide throughout the fight if you are unable to heal through the damage from the death ray, then you should probably focus your attacks on bow first and foremost so that any of your stuns or silence effects cause her to stop damaging you, because you should be able to dodge all the rocket barrages, and therefore the only major damage source will be from bow's little ray attack. However, if you find that you can heal through the damage, which is what I found, then I would suggest attacking Max primarily, because at least for me as a melee, I want to stand still a lot more often and not have to move around. So if I can just stand there and do like my Fist of Fury and all that stuff, that's better for me. So I opted to attack Max primarily. Now, every once in a while, one of these goblins will teleport themselves to one of the corners of the room where there's this little barrier that they activate. And while they're in the barrier, they don't take damage. Now, they will still take damage if you attack their partner because of the shared health pool. So if you want, you can simply always attack the goblin that's not in the barrier, and you'll be fine. You don't have to worry about the guy that's in the barrier, or the girl. But if you choose, you want to focus your attacks on one goblin, you can kill the barrier by just attacking the little totem that powers it, and it doesn't have very much health. And then you can keep attacking them. It'll shatter that protector shield. So you can see I attacked the first barrier because Max was in it there, but the second one I realized I don't need to do that. So I just went over and attacked Bo, and didn't matter that Max was in the shield since they share health. So that finished him off. So anyway, it can be a little bit challenging. There's quite a bit of damage going on, a lot of movement. So you just have to practice a little bit. And that is GG Engineering. And of course, if they win, they will tell you good game. And they're pricks. So I hope you beat them. Let's check out the second. All right. Second, we have Dark Summoner. And I hate this guy. He's an asshole. He hangs out with douchebags. You'll see very clearly what I'm talking about. It's the kind of people that yell out during the movies or just can't stop looking at their cell phone. Just, bah. So this guy is the first boss that I got stuck on. It took me a number of attempts to get him down and just kept getting screwed, even after understanding the mechanics. Part of that is being melee for sure. This is the first fight where melee are at a distinct disadvantage, especially if you are ranged with dots. A dot class is going to have a lot easier time with this fight, and I'll tell you why here with the mechanics. So basically when you start the fight, you don't want to initially engage him because Dark Summoner has a protective shield on him, so he's just immune to damage. And then shortly after, you'll get a beam of light that will emanate from the center, basically wherever you look, like a miner's helmet. And this beam will allow you to look directly at any of the ghosts that Dark Summoner creates around the room. And when you beam them, they will be stunned, and basically they're feared temporarily. So the idea here is to aim the beam at the ghost, and when you kill a ghost, it will remove the shield from the Dark Summoner for 15 seconds and allow you to attack him for 15 seconds. However, the problem with this fight is that if a ghost even, singular, melees you, it will hit you for 600,000 damage. Baseline. Like, it's crazy amounts. So it one-shots you. And it one-shots your pets and your dead grandmother and everyone you ever loved or knew in this world. And I don't like it. So the other problem is that the mechanics on the range of their melee is very weird. So let's illustrate that with a clip that I saved from a previous attempt. All right, so here we are at another footage of another attempt. And, at this point, I know all the mechanics. I know what I'm supposed to do. I know that they're finicky and all that stuff, but it doesn't seem to matter. So, killing this ghost, making sure I keep the beam on him at all times. Attacking the boss a little bit till the next ghost gets near me. And then I fear that ghost. And one thing you should be mindful of is, since the beam is attached to you, especially as a melee, if you get too close to the ghost, then it can basically forget that you're channeling the beam at it, and it will break its fear and kill you instantly. So, here we go. Do you see that? That was a melee hit from that ghost. Let's watch it again. I'm going to play it in really slow motion just so we can see the full effect of how annoying this is. So I'm killing the previous ghost here. And you'll notice that the Dark Summoner has a cast time, and he has a cast bar to indicate when he's summoning a ghost. So here he's summoning a ghost, and just as he finishes, there's the ghost that he summoned behind me. And now look how far away it is, and I even start to move, and it meleeed me. That was the log. I checked it 1,000,000 times. That ghost that he just summoned meleeed me from that far away. This guy can suck it. I don't like him. All right. So ultimately, the goal here is to distribute your time spent between attacking the Dark Summoner and managing the number of ghosts that are active. Because you can quickly become overwhelmed with the number of ghosts that are floating around the room. Even though they move very slowly, this goes doubly if you're a melee, because Dark Summoner moves slowly as well. So if you allow a number of ghosts to stack up and they're near him, you're going to have a very hard time attacking him without having one of the ghosts break free or just melee you in the face for no reason. And you can't really separate the ghosts very easily from him. You can stun them and then back up a little and have them follow you and whatnot, but you don't have a lot of time to waste either. So it's really about managing that balance. The best thing I found was to burn all my DPS cooldowns early. So like when you get that first ghost down, you should basically be using your cooldowns around that time so you can burn him for that 15 seconds, because it'll take him a few seconds before the next ghost comes up. And then your cooldown should last you through that second ghost and allow you to get a second sort of set of burn time on him and that follow-up 15. From there, you're sort of on your own because ghosts are going to be spawning fairly quickly. And again, you need to figure out your own balance. Now, things are quite a bit easier if you're ranged, because you can basically stun a ghost, but make sure you're far enough away from it, regardless of the summoner's position, to either attack the ghost or attack the summoner if you just killed a ghost and his shield is down. So, again, the goal is to not get meleeed no matter what. And therefore, you have to always make sure you're focusing the beam on the ghost that you are near and that is coming toward you. And they will be stunned for a brief moment after the beam leaves them, but it's not a great deal of time. So you have to just decide on the fly which one is a valid target and which one you can ignore for a moment, which is more important. So, yeah, that's the Dark Summoner. I don't like him. I think he cheats, and he's not a nice guy. So, anyway, let's check out the third fight in rank 7. Alright, third you'll face Battletron, and I don't like this guy at all. For me, this was by far the most difficult fight to actually conquer that I'd faced thus far. And it's not so much strategically difficult. I knew how to do everything. I was doing it right. It's just meeting the DPS requirement was very challenging. And it may be partially my spec, my class, and certainly my gear. Since this is my off spec, I'm primarily a healer. My eye level for this set is 480, and that was just barely enough to get this. It took me, I think, 17 or 18 attempts to finally meet the DPS requirement. And pretty much just have all the stars align and get all my procs going at the same time and crit a lot and all that good stuff. So the requirement, you have to do his 9.6 million damage, or in health, in 2 minutes. So baseline, that's 80,000 DPS sustained for 2 minutes. You technically need a little bit more than that because you don't want to kill him just as enrage happens and then find out you actually were killed and you didn't get credit. So you want to be slightly above 80,000 DPS. Now, obviously, reaching that goal will be very different for classes, and specs, and of course, if your gear is different and all that stuff. So I can't offer a great deal of tips for non-monk players as far as DPS requirements. I would suggest that if you have stronger burst DPS cooldowns, this fight will be easier for you because of that, since you just really want to push out as much DPS as you can in that short time window. Now, as far as strategy for this fight, it's pretty simple. You initially will engage Battletron, and he'll immediately start to conjure unstable mines, which you can see he's doing there. And this is a 10-second channel, and while he's channeling, you can't stun him or interrupt him or anything. While he's channeling, the mines that he channels are inactive, so you can attack, you can stand on them, nothing will happen. But as soon as he completes that channel, all 8 mines that he's summoned around him in a circle will become activated. At this point, any attacks that you make that pass through the location of an existing mine will trigger the mine, it will explode, and deal around 95,000 arcane damage to you. And you cannot outrange it or anything like that. It's a massive range, so it's going to hit you in the arena. So because of that, you need to do one of two things. Either avoid triggering extraneous mines by circling around him in a gap that you created, like you see I'm doing here, or you need to cool down and heal through the damage and ignore triggering of mines and just burn him down, while he keeps summoning new sets. So either one is viable. I've seen high-geared Shadow Priests just stand in one spot and just, DPS him and cool down through it. But then on the other hand, I've seen even ranged players use this strafing ability thing here. So it's sort of up to you and your spec and what you have available. I would recommend, if you can at all, create a spec that allows you to move and DPS at the same time. Warlock, Elemental Shaman, any melee DPS, of course, probably mages, anything like that you should do so. Because surviving triggering mines over and over is pretty difficult. It's a lot of damage, especially with the normal attack that he uses. So in addition to mine damage, he will also just zap you every once in a while, just with an arcane bolt attack. And there's not much you can do about that. You just have to heal through the damage. It does around 45,000 arcane damage to you. So, I found, at least for me, to maximize my DPS, I had to be extremely efficient with my healing. Basically, whatever your healing abilities may be for your class, you're going to want to maximize the conversion between your resources that could be converted to DPS and how they're healing you. So, like for me, I used Chi Wave as much as possible to provide myself with healing, and tried to not use my energy whenever I could. And just that was the most efficient way I could do it. And that pretty much means healing on cooldown with that ability rather than waiting until I get low and then having to, use extra resources to heal myself back up because I wasn't paying attention. So that kind of thing. As for specific tips for meeting the DPS requirement, again, these are mostly going to be from the perspective of a monk, so I can't offer a lot for other classes. I will say, generally speaking, you're going to want to double potion this fight. You also want all your buffs that you can have active. So pretty common now in the Brawlers Guild is for a raid group to be formed to provide raid buffs to players. One thing to keep in mind, though, is a lot of people, for some reason, seem to think that aura effects will help you if you're in a raid and there's an aura that gives you a buff. This is not the case. Just look at the buffs. That when you step in there, any aura does not benefit you. It has to be a castable, duration-based buff, and that will stay on you. So you can get things like Battle Shout or Horn of Winter, but you can't have a 10% attack aura, and that won't stay with you when you enter the arena because you're a separate entity at that point. So just be conscious of that and try to make sure that you get all the castable buffs that you're going to need that you can, because everything will help out. Also, of course, flask yourself and then double potion. You can use the Brawler potions for this, but basically you want to use a potion just a second or so before the mob that you're fighting is going to spawn. And this is a good practice for any of these fights, really, but especially this one with such a high DPS requirement. Just before Battletron is about to spawn, use your potion, and this will happen before you get in combat so that the 60-second cooldown will start ticking. Just like pre-potting in any raid fight, basically. And then you can line up your second potion use later on in the fight when it's convenient for you. So, as for Monk, what I found was to initially stand right on the location that the mines are being sent out and start my DPS cycle from there. And then I would use my, Touch of Karma cooldown just at the moment that he's summoning the last mine. So this will basically give me 10 seconds of absorb and reflection damage equal to my health. So about 400,000 health it looks like I have. So my goal here was to trigger 3 mines while I had Touch of Karma active at the start of the fight and do it right away, and then leave the 5 that are necessary for him not to summon more mines. And that way, those 3 mines are triggered, totaling a little under 300,000 extra damage that I really don't have to do much extra to get the benefit of. So that helped quite a bit. And then by using that cooldown early enough, since I have 2 minutes to do the fight, and the cooldown is only 90 seconds, I'm able to use it again right before the end of the fight by, again, using it and then stepping through another 3 or 4 mines as I finish them off. Yeah, and then other than that, it's just, general Windwalker stuff, maximizing your chi and energy use. Make sure you use your procs properly, keep your Rising Sun kick on cooldown, all that good stuff. You'll probably find you can't use Fists of Fury on this fight, which is unfortunate. You can use it at the very beginning, which is a good time to do so, even if it's a little bit inefficient for your energy, because you're not going to be able to stand still long enough to use it full duration on this fight without getting a mine in your range. So, yeah, I would suggest using it early, and then you can use it again after you use Touch of Karma a second time. Yeah. Anyway, so that is Battletron. He sucks. It took me a long time, like I said, but hopefully you'll have a little bit higher DPS burst or better gear perhaps and be able to take him down. So let's check out the final boss in rank 7. So lastly, we have Meatball, and it turns out I'm an idiot and didn't record this fight at all. I don't have any footage of it because I just forgot and there was only one try. So instead, you'll have to pretend that Meatwad here is Meatball, close enough, and that I'm moving and attacking him as he bobs and weaves. That's all I got. I'm sorry. It's terrible. So, Meatball is stupidly simple to be the final fight of rank 7. I don't understand it at all. Basically, it's a gnoll, and he'll spawn, and he'll create a series of little purple orbs on the ground, just a huge number of these arcane little orbs. And if you run over an orb, it heals you for about 12% of your health and increases your damage by 20% in the stacks. So literally all you have to do is try to constantly be moving and doing damage to him, and you will destroy his soul. Like it wasn't even close. And again, this is after having beaten Battletron, which is a crazy DPS requirement compared to this. So I don't know what to say. Yeah, Meatwad is a joke. I wish I had footage. I really apologize. I don't. But if you're a melee, just constantly be running, and you can backpedal with him on you while you're doing your DPS rotation. If you're a caster, again, if you can spec into it in some way, try to get a spec that allows you to move a lot and cast, because you want to constantly be picking up the orbs. Now, he sort of has an enrage when he gets low health, but if you do enough damage from enough stacks of the buff, you're not even going to notice. He'll just explode. If he does hit the enrage, though, you may need a cooldown to survive that. But I didn't see it personally, but I've seen it on other people in their attempts. So that is Meatball. He's quite a letdown after the difficulty of the previous fights in this tier. But if you got that, you got rank 8. Congratulations, and thanks for watching.